Hello, welcome to the Grief Retreat. I'm Lucy.
And I'm Sam. I'm a rapid transformational therapist.
And I'm a grief recovery method specialist.
And together we're going to take you on the grief recovery process.
And we're going to give you hope and inspiration to take you from the darkness to the light. Hi, welcome to the Grief Retreat. I'm Lucy.
And I'm Sam.
And we're going to be talking about grief, our grief journey and how grief affects our life mentally, physically and emotionally.
So Luce, to get started, why don't you kick off and share with the people that are watching why, well, not actually your story. So,
yeah,
you know, what's happened? What has your grief journey been?
Yeah, okay. So my grief journey started really, the main was 2015. So 2015 was a completely life-changing year for me. In that year, I had a miscarriage. My mum, she'd had cancer for 20 years, but finally they said, right, you've only got a few months to live. That was in February. In the May, my brother-in-law got spine cancer and got a few months to live as well.
Oh my God.
In the June, I found out lots of things had been going on with my husband and some things had come to light. So my marriage started falling apart. And then I think that's just moving on a bit, in the September, I decided to leave my husband. No, in the August, sorry, my brother-in-law died. In the September, I decided to leave my marital home, left my marital home on the 15th of October. Then my mum died on the 17th of October. And then I found my stepdad dead on the 19th of November.
Oh my goodness.
So literally within that whole year, so many things have changed.
All in 12 months?
In 12 months, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And before that, actually, in the September of 2014, my auntie died of a brain aneurysm, which actually catapulted my mum's cancer. So my mum couldn't have a treatment because she was too poorly and she was obviously grieving the loss of her sister. And that's what catapulted her cancer. So that's when it really started, actually, in the September 2014. So all these events, all these huge events, and were just leading to another event. Yeah. It was just all so overwhelming. And then after all that happened, things would just happen with my ex-husband as well. So he met someone else, he got someone else pregnant, and then she moved into my marital home. I lost my business, my property business. And then I had a massive court case with my ex-husband, which cost me thousands and thousands of pounds. And
so it's financial loss as well?
Massive financial. I lost my business, and then I nearly went bankrupt. And then I was just stuck in this massive court case with my ex-husband, which was just so mentally draining. I was just having to deal with this every single day. And so literally what happened in all that short space of time is that I went through so much grief. But I lost myself.
Yeah, of course.
I was empty, lost my identity. I didn't know what I was doing. Some weeks I'd be okay, and then I'd just crash into...
Well, most people go through that in their whole lifetime.
Yeah.
Never mind in 12 months.
I know.
It's almost been squashed into a small pocket of your life.
Yeah, it was really overwhelming. It was just too much at one time. And so... as I said, I was making mistakes, a lot of mistakes, and just behaving in real strange way.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about
which
that.
We will talk about.
Which we will talk about.
Which
in
will
more
be
detail.
a funny episode.
I was just, and you know, as we know, a lot of people who go through grief end up losing their identity.
Absolutely.
And I was just completely lost for such a long time. And this is what's led me to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So, because I went through my depression, I nearly had 2 mental breakdowns. I went into some extremely dark places. You know, I would literally lie in bed and just cry, like literally sob, where no one could see.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so... and I pulled myself out of that. And each time I pulled myself out of them dark places, I became a little bit stronger. And I just wanted to help other people know that there is life after grief,
Yeah.
after you go through so much deep grief. And I wanted to just get them people from the darkness to the light. So that's why I've now gone to become a grief recovery specialist, and I've got my own clinic, and I coach people through grief.
And I think what you've said as well will lead into another series that we're going to do about all those things that you've mentioned. I bet a lot of people don't realise that they're all grief.
Yeah.
Even the financial loss, the divorce,
Oh, absolutely.
the breakup,
yeah,
the
we're going to talk.
friendships.
We're going to talk about that, aren't we? It's, grief is, is so massive. If you go back, my first grief was when my dad left, and I was like 2.
Yeah, of course.
But we don't associate.
Don't connect the dots.
Don't connect the dots, do we? So
until you're in the profession that you are now, and then you realise
you understand.
You can put it all together, the jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah. So that's it was completely overwhelming. I really did not know that pain like that existed.
Yeah,
it's
brutal. I always say to people, it's a club that you don't want to be part of.
No, it's just awful.
It's indescribable, actually.
Yeah, well, I always used to describe it as just walking around like a ball and chain every day. It was I was just so emotionally drained. It was like, how much more can I actually take?
And how long ago was your last kind of loss? Because where you are now is a very different person. You're in recovery and healing, and that's why we're doing this podcast. But where was that last real bad loss that you had? Like, was it years? Was it months?
Yeah, so when we've had when we probably talk about loss, was the massive last loss was when I lost my business, my property business, which was in 2017, 8/18.
So about 5 years.
Yeah, so that was like, again, 14 years of a business gone.
Yeah.
So that was really hard, because then I'm like, well, what am I going to do? What am I doing? Who
again,
am I?
You lose your identity.
Lost my identity.
It's that cycle again.
Yeah.
Takes you right back. Awakens all your fears. They come to the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm a failure. I'm no good at anything. I can't. Everything I do goes wrong. You question yourself. Why is it all this happening to me? But yeah, obviously, as again, we'll talk about it more later, but you have to take responsibility, don't you, in the end, for how you're reacting to your grief.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
when it gets to a point where your back's up against the wall, you're on your knees in so much pain, and you've got nowhere else to go, and you're like, I've got to do something, but you have to get to that point.
Yeah.
No one else can tell you what to do. You've got to get to that point yourself before you say, you wave the white flag and say, like, help me now.
Yeah.
And that's probably what you've done for the last couple of years, isn't it?
Yeah.
For your recovery.
Absolutely. I've had to go, it is a recovery process, and it's a continuous process as well. Throughout life, we all deal with a lot of grief.
Yeah.
And we've got to have the tools and techniques to be able to pull ourselves through it.
Yeah, definitely.
So without going into these deep, dark holes, and obviously it happens to a lot of people. So...
And what's your mission for the podcast, for people that are watching this first episode?
I think it's generally just want to be real and honest about grief, and that, it affects us massively with our emotions, our behaviour, physically, and getting people to understand that. And know some people think they're going crazy through grief.
Yeah, definitely.
They literally feel like they're losing their mind. And, it's all normal. Everything you've experienced and all that emotions and feelings and thought is normal.
Yeah.
And it's just helping people. And I want people to understand that you're not crazy. You're not broken.
You're not on your own either.
You're not on your own. You don't need fixing. You just need some guidance and help to come through it.
Yeah.
So, enough about my grief. So Sam, again, obviously we've been friends for a long time.
Yeah. From the disco dancing floor to the sofa.
We used to go raving together back in the day.
In our 20s, partying.
Yeah. And so obviously we've not seen each other as much, but I've seen your journey. We're both big on Facebook, and we both like to pour our heart and soul out on Facebook. We've always been like that. So we have been on this grief journey together already, as we have. On social media and being friends, and our journeys have been different.
Yeah,
but the pain has been the same.
Definitely.
So and that's really interesting, isn't it? So let's talk about your grief.
Yeah, so I think very similar. I think the biggest loss that I've experienced was my sister dying. I was 7 months pregnant with my little IVF baby, a miracle baby. So you can imagine to go through IVF, you've got to experience some form of loss. So I've had baby loss, I've had miscarriages. I've actually had a miscarriage 12 months before I lost Zoe. And Zoe's my sister, and she died. And that was the biggest loss that I've experienced, the most painful.
Yeah. We call that like a deep grief and trauma.
And it affected my whole family. My family are very close, and we almost became quite disjointed for quite some time. Because of the dynamics of my family as well. We had some challenges with just, I suppose, connections in the family, which means that we had other losses, external losses. And then about 12 months after Zoe, I found out Sophia had a peanut allergy. So that was real scary for me, because then I was living with a fear of losing my daughter all the time because she's got this allergy. I got diagnosed with separation anxiety and depression, postnatal depression, after I'd had Sophia. I couldn't let her out of my sight. I was always on high alert. And I'd never had anxiety previous to that. So it kind of awakened all of my fears. But going back a few years before the loss of Zoe, me and my husband split up in 2009. So we got divorced in 2010. Now, that meant that I had to leave the marital home. Financially, life changed. And the friendship circle. I had to remove myself. You lose a lot of friends,
don't you? Yeah.
So that was lost, but I didn't understand then what I know now.
It's a huge change, isn't it, in your life?
Yeah, and I slept on my mum and dad's sofa for like 2 weeks at 33, moved in with my sister that's of course not here anymore. Exactly the same, no identity, who am I, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Just completely feel like I've failed at life, I haven't got anything. And had to rebuild life. And then I also lost my career, because when I had Sophia, because my sister died in the hospital that I worked at, I found it very difficult to go back there. I had anxiety the moment I'd get on the car park. So I made a decision when Sophia was just 2.5 months old not to go back to nursing and to pursue setting up and going into business for myself. So that was a loss as well.
Yeah.
So that year,
but you're not realising that at the time.
No, I didn't understand that loss meant all of these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I literally was mommy and setting up a new business and fully in and focused on making my diary as full as possible so I don't have to feel anything.
Yeah.
And then I just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked, and I was the strong one, and I was the person that everyone went, look at you.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And then in 2017, after I got married again to my second husband,
who was your amazing soulmate?
Let's add
that in.
Sophia went to school, and when that happened, then I had this time, and then that's when I had a breakdown, because all of a sudden I had time to feel what I'd been escaping. And that's when grief really, I suppose I hadn't allowed myself to grieve after the death, after all the losses. I got back up after my divorce. I got back up after the miscarriage. I went back to work after my sister's death. I built a business and looked after my daughter. And then when I had this time, it was like, oh, what on earth is happening to me? This is, and I felt completely out of my own body.
Yeah.
And it was scary. I was scared. I had, intrusive thoughts. I remember driving on the motorway thinking, what would happen now if I just went into that car? I would take Sophia to school, come home, go back to bed.
Oh, I used to do that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the school one is awful.
The worst time.
Hold up, don't speak to me.
I'm a bit like that still now, to be honest.
No. It's all you want to do, all you're thinking about in that school run is going back to bed.
Yeah, and
you don't have to face the day.
And the fear, I remember just feeling like I had a kind of a noose around my neck, and every night before bed would be, I'd go to bed scared and wake up scared. And I knew I needed help. Back against the wall. I'll never forget sat in my garden phoning my mum and my other sister and saying, you need to come home from work and help me, because I was scared of, I don't think I was going to do anything. I was scared of where I was going to and the thoughts I was having, and I knew I had to do something. And in that moment, because I'd never experienced these feelings before, I know other people that have been around me have, and I suppose I just was experiencing this for the first time, so I just deep dived into learning. Googling why am I feeling like this? What does this mean? And I remember staying up all night and
trying to understand it.
I had a sense of relief. I thought, oh, I'm not going crazy.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay.
And then I was like, right, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
And I started to research the steps I needed to take to start moving forward, because I did not like how, not that anyone likes it, but I did not want to be like that, because Sophia was IVF. It took me years to have her. Time with her was the most important thing after the loss of my sister, and listening to my parents, they instilled in us how important that time was. And I thought, if I don't get better, everything I've ever worked for and want and need and desire, I'm not going to have.
Yeah.
And it was that family unit. It makes me emotional. I'm not going to cry. And it was that family unit, that connection, that love, and being healthy and happy. Not happy all the time, but being happy generally.
Yeah.
And then,
which is really hard to find again when you've experienced that pain.
Yeah.
It's so hard
to
you
trust.
know, and we should both be extremely proud of ourselves, the way we have pulled ourselves out of that pain. Because when you're in that pain, it's very easy to be destructive as well. How do you get yourself out of that?
Yeah.
It's so hard, and we have both done it.
I have, because now I'm here with you.
Yeah, no, and we have both done it.
Not that we laugh about it now, but that's the wrong word. Yeah. What I mean is we can find light in that darkness. Well, we share stories and we giggle together and be like, oh, you did this. Oh, me too.
Yeah. Well, we've both, and this is what I obviously teach my clients, and I know you do, we've both grown from our grief.
Yeah.
So, and that's hard to do.
Yeah.
And when I say to people, I'm going to help you grow from your grief. Like, how can I grow from grief? I don't know what you mean. It's an
incredible feeling.
Yeah. Do we let our grief define us, or do we pull ourselves out of that hole and grow from it? And I would say now, and I think the same for you, I'm not quite there yet, but and there's still a lot more that I need to do, and still doing work on myself, and still things missing in my life. But I would say I'm probably the happiest I've ever been.
Yeah.
Obviously, I am, I haven't got my parents here, I've lost my marriage and my family unit. But in myself, as a person, I am the happiest I've been.
And I think the biggest thing...
That's only from my healing journey. I would never be where I am now if it wasn't for that.
And it brings immense bittersweet gratitude.
Yeah.
That we had to lose so much.
Yeah.
To love so much.
Yeah.
I might even cry. To love so much, because, it's been a lot, hasn't it? It's a lot. It's been a lot.
Yeah. It's like, how do you love again and feel that love and happiness and be healthy again when you felt so much pain? And
the biggest thing I think I've learned is that the best relationship that you have is with yourself.
Yeah. Well, it all starts and ends with you, doesn't it? And again, I'm so big on self-care and self-love. If we don't love ourselves and we don't look after ourselves, how can we be the best version of us?
Yeah.
How can we have healthy relationships? And
I think then got to that kind of breakdown point, learning, making changes, pulling on tools. Yes, I went onto medication, it didn't work for me. So, I used other ways, and I just practiced loads of self-care. And then I got myself out of that hole. But then there was other losses. So I was in a business where maybe people would leave the industry, and I would take that personally, like they're leaving me, and it would set me back.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where that happened, and then there was other things, like I had a friendship loss, and then that would set me back, and I'd get back to how I was feeling when Zoe died.
Yeah.
All of those fears awakened. I was like, this isn't normal. Like, that shouldn't impact me. So then there was almost.
But it's a loss, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a change in your life, and you're questioning yourself again. And I've lost friends recently, and it is you're questioning that loss. But I think sometimes we have to lose friends to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I just found that life was almost going too up and down. There wasn't a constant, and that's when I then. Of course, like yourself, then you went into coaching grief. I then found rapid transformational therapy, and I've done courses on grief, because I knew I didn't want to go up and down like this all the time in my life. I didn't mind a bump in the road now and again, but I wanted that smoother transition of life.
A balanced life,
Yes, and when the bump came, I'd be like, right, we're in a bumpy time, I can handle it. So instead of it knocking me out for months, years, weeks,
exactly.
It's a day.
Yeah.
It's a moment. Sometimes I can turn myself around in 2 hours.
Yeah.
So, and that's
exactly, mate. Well, look, I had a bit of a wobble yesterday, didn't I? And so, but I pulled myself out of it.
And I think that's where we've both got to now. We are professionals who are providing a service to support people through their journey, not only through learning through a book or a course, but through experience.
Yeah. Well, you can't, how can I sit and talk about grief to someone and try and understand their pain? Yeah. Same as you if you haven't been through it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's impossible. Yeah. Like, grief isn't textbook. It's like, grief is experience. You've got to have understood that pain. And also, you know, we're both very compassionate people, so we are taking on that pain.
Yeah. Which is challenging sometimes.
It's very challenging.
But also beautiful.
It's very rewarding, and it's great when you know, my clients are coming in and I can see that them getting lighter and they feel much lighter.
Just see the change.
The change, and they're shifting in their face tone, colour, everything. And I've released that pain for them.
It's
but obviously I do take it on as well, though. It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's helping people find the light in the darkness, because we have.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but when I was in the eye of the storm, I couldn't help other people.
No.
If my friend, I did have a very...
But you say that, though, but I did. You still used to do it.
Didn't realise.
Yeah.
But I found it
It's just probably distracting us for a bit.
Yeah. But now, coming out the other end, we're able to sit and do... And that's what the podcast is about, isn't it? It's about saying, look, this is our story, this is what we've learned, this is our experience from a professional point of view. And I think the main thing is so people go, oh my goodness, me too.
Yeah.
Because it's very isolating.
It is very isolating. I think, and also as well, it's people don't like to talk about how they're feeling after grief. So
it's a dark subject.
Yeah, we're stuck in that. But we're stuck in a society of people who actually stop us from feeling our grief. So we'll get a lot of people, you know, you'll be fine. Come on, you can do this and all that, which is fine. But actually, no, I just want to actually cry and let out my grief. And it's not weak. You know, you are grieving.
And allowing people the space to do that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of judgment in grief.
Yeah.
A lot of judgment.
I remember someone said to me years and years ago, why are you still crying? I was like, yeah. And that's when you know people don't understand. And unfortunately, it's like anything in life, really. You have to have experienced it to understand it. And I remember saying to my friend, it's a look. You can when you're sat with someone that's been through grief, it's just a look. You can just look at each other and you know. You don't need to exchange words. You can just look at them and you know where they're at and why they're feeling that way.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just allowing people to feel that so they feel connected, because it is a lot of healing at home behind the curtains.
And this is why I've got my clinic and stuff, because I want to create a community where people can come here, and be with like-minded people who are not going to judge them, who they can talk about their grief, freely. I said, this is how I've been feeling today.
And because as you know it, the grief journey, the experiences, there's a lot of things that you don't realise are linked to your grief, which we will go on to discuss, the behaviours, the impacts, the challenges, the shame, the guilt, all of those things.
Yeah.
And when you're in it, you don't think that those things are connected to the loss of your loved one 4 years ago.
Of course
it's not until you go on this journey of healing and recovery and coaching and therapy that you put the jigsaw puzzle together and go, oh, it all makes sense now.
This is why I was acting like this.
Yeah, this was crazy.
This is why I was doing this, I know. And unfortunately, then it's like, people are, I've got mental health issues, I'm this, I'm that, then they go on medication and they're not actually understanding why they're feeling the way they are.
All they're doing is masking and numbing and putting this big old plaster over
the wound, And obviously what we do with our healing and helping people is actually healing that wound in the right way. So, but again, we'll talk about that more.
Yeah.
But
so I think that's us.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, as much as we can share in the first.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think
session.
We've both been through a very hard journey and very painful journey.
And I think just to add to that, like people that maybe are watching or listening, just want to say that a lot of the time people think that trauma is this big event, like someone's got to die for you to experience that deep grief. They haven't.
No.
Like you can have a friend that's broke up with you after 30 years of friendship and feel the same.
Absolutely.
So it's not the experience that impacts you, it's the emotion you attach to it.
Yeah, of course.
So the friendship breaks that were really important to me and they hurt me a lot, but they might not have affected my sister or my brother or my parents.
Well, everyone reacts different to grief and different griefs, like significant emotional events in our life. And every relationship's different and every grief's different. So no one should judge.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, how you react to something might be completely different to how I do.
And you'll all have different stories and experiences of the same experience as well, which is important for people to know that if they're in a family that are struggling with grief, they'll all be having their different journey, different experiences, different relationships,
different behaviours.
You know,
and obviously I do family coaching, and it's really important that the family understand the dynamics. I think you mentioned about this earlier.
Yeah,
we've got to take and look at each person and understand that they're grieving in a different way.
But when you're in it and you don't know that, you think, what's she been doing that for? Vile.
Here she goes again. Actually, I know. Oh my God. Yeah. See, we both look at things so differently now, don't we?
We have a lot more compassion and kindness and understanding.
Yeah. But also as well, I think it's important, and I think I've done this massively, and I know you have. We've got to think of our own mental well-being, and I have removed myself from negative environments that was not serving me, and I think that can be really hard to do that.
Very much so.
Really hard, in fact. But especially for what we do, we cannot be negative environments.
No, and I think you just have to ask yourself, I actually did this yesterday.
Yeah.
Even on social media, it's a big thing, like, are the people that I'm following and interacting with harming me? Yeah. And it's not that it's their fault. Yeah. It's just that actually I feel worse or bad, or I have negative thoughts about myself when I'm around those people and when I'm with them. So you might not be able to eliminate certain people from your circle for whatever reason, but what you can do is distance. You can just make the gap a little bit bigger. Yeah. So it doesn't impact you as much. And I think it's just about having healthy boundaries, protecting your own energy.
Got to, yeah.
You know?
And also you've got to understand that you can't help everybody. No. Some people don't want to be helped.
Absolutely.
So not. It's like, I'm like, that person probably needs some coaching or a bit of here, a bit of this, but that person needs, or them people, whoever,
has to be that.
They have to take responsibility and accountability, and until that happens,
it's about timing as well, isn't it? Yeah. Like it has to be the right time for you to say, do you know, I need to make a change. Not I need to change, because it's about I need to make a change so I can love and live my life. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's actually just recognising that. So I say, when it comes to like making them changes, it's recognising, removing, realigning, and rising. Yeah. That's the four. That's what I say, and that's what you need to do. Yeah, definitely. Because otherwise, you're just going to be stuck. Going round in a circle on the hamster wheel.
You're on that hamster wheel. Woo woo woo. Yeah. I've been on that a few times.
And making a change isn't easy. It's the hardest thing that you'll do, but it's the most rewarding. Yeah. Long term. Short term pain, long term gain.
Exactly, yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, so that's us there.
So I hope you enjoyed that, and thanks for listening to us.
And hope to see you on the next episode.